You know what I find funny? I find funny how everybody's gonna believe everything we talk about is scripted in this interview because you own this channel and I'm on the Steiner section. But no, we just planned this out today. So what's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Jackson Steiner, and welcome to another edition of the Steiner section. Today, I'm joined by one of the most influential people, in my opinion, in pro wrestling. He's the former owner of RWI, and he's the founder and owner of Roblania Studios, with a YouTube channel that has a lot of subscribers and a lot of views. He is AVP. Welcome to the show, man.
Good to be here, even though I own Roblania. Not awkward at all.
Not awkward at all. Not awkward at all. But yeah, welcome to the show. How you feeling today?
Pretty good, knowing that your contract is in my hand. So if you ask me a bad question, I'm gonna fire you.
Well, I mean, let's just get started. Ashays, when did you start pro wrestling?
I started around 2011, just basically playing like wrestling games, but I didn't actually start legitimately Fed hosting until like 2012, where I would do it in base plate with free models. I didn't know it was Fed hosting at the time. I thought it was just, like doing wrestling in the backstage, but I had proper context, storylines, matches, and all that stuff, so I consider it Fed hosting. But technically, I didn't start RWI until 2017. I actually didn't start RWI. My friend Katara Crusher, who was in my old Fed, he actually started it. He hosted the shows right after my shows, and eventually he rebooted in 2018. I took over, and I just ended up basically doing most of the work. We hit 100 players because CJ was very good. He got me there, and that's when I got control of the group, and ever since I've just been hosting RWI.
RWI, in my opinion, was a very successful Fed, especially in 2020, because obviously you were there. I mean, we got a lot of views on a few episodes of Knockout. Well, not views, but players. Can you agree?
Part of the pandemic had to play with that, because a lot of people had more free time, but not only that, I think with the amount of players that were coming in, we had to step up in our quality, and I think at the time when we were hitting 50s every single week, that was, I do genuinely think that we were at, you look at Feds like BPW, and they necessarily don't have 50 players, so I think that at that point, we were major at one point. And we did it was a really great run. I know towards the end it dimmered down, but that was collectively, we have a video on that called What Killed RWI, which you should probably go watch. But yeah, I do agree with that. Yeah.
So we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Let's go back a little bit. What is the first Fed that you remember you went to when you first started to really get into pro wrestling? Like actual Feds and not just base plate and stuff.
I think it was, I did a lot of stuff in Takedown because my friends, shout out to Heledge, my friends did a lot of Takedown and RP stuff, so I went to one called the UCW, not the one hosted by AJC, but it was a Takedown one. But in terms of clean, I had, I got a lot of inspiration to host like proper shows when I went to shows like RWU, but I never really went to a bunch of major federations until I started learning more about it. I think CJ is one of the people that actually enlightened my eyes and showed me more about the community, that there's, there's people hosting with big servers, and you can actually go further than, what you're doing right now. So I think CJ has a lot of, I give him a lot of credit for showing me the community, and I think I wouldn't know half the stuff that I know without him.
As from what I've heard about what you said about CJ from the past few years I've known you and through this interview so far, I can tell that CJ has been very instrumental in your career. When did you meet CJ, actually?
I indirectly met him through a friend called an RWI alumni. I indirectly met him. He won the RWWW championship, which isn't very prestigious. That is my old Fed, if you don't know. So we never really were friends, but he did win the title at some point. Obviously, the federation closed down in 2017, I believe, and so yeah, we met. We began to talk to each other, I think, when it was 2018, around early 2018. That's when he was pro wrestling and he was doing really good, and he was probably the top guy there, and we met and we really hit it off. We had this really great conversation where it was with management. I was working with some really toxic people, and he was telling me, you gotta do this, this is your Fed, you gotta take control. And without him, I don't think I would have ever gone to the point where I am right now, because I'm a very, very like sort of controlling person, in which I need to know what I'm doing, and I need to like have control, and I wasn't always like that. I used to be the type of guy that let people, do a lot of things that they shouldn't have done. And CJ was one of those people that when I first met him, he told me like, you gotta be an authoritative person. So I credit him with that too. But we met and we just hit it off really easily, and I think that's why we lasted for like I think that's why we're still friends now.
Yeah. So I can already tell, CJ, big part of your career. You guys are still friends to this day. RWI. I remember back in RWI, whenever you guys were co-owners, you did most of the work. And do you think CJ could have done more, or was he just had nothing else to offer? No offense, CJ, if you're watching.
Well, the thing with CJ and me is that I did like physical work, but CJ did a lot of mental work. And even though you could say that technically I did put in more hours, CJ is one of those people that put out. If I had not had CJ, I would have never been where I am right now, because we were such a good pair. He was able to push me. I'll give you an example. At Final Shot, when we were doing it, I was gonna cap it at around like 50 players. He told me put up to 75, and we exceeded our limits every single time that CJ said so. If I didn't have CJ, he wouldn't. First off, he advertised us. He was the guy that got us to 100 players. I don't take credit for how many members we have in the group. CJ did all of that. And in terms, I believe in the later portions, I did do a lot for RWI in terms of advertising, but it's the foundation that CJ set up in the beginning is what got us to where we eventually became. But I don't think CJ should have done more. He did exactly what he needed to do. He went above and beyond. He was really great. He was a really great partner, and a lot of people don't have that type of co-owner that has the same vision and has the same thing. A lot of vice presidents and co-owners, they have this ulterior motive where when they take into the federation, they want to gain popularity, or they want to like gain clout off the Fed because it's doing really successful. CJ never wanted that. CJ wanted both of us to be successful, and he wanted RWI to be successful because he knew how much potential it had. And at the end, we did that. We finally got our goal, and he was one of the people that pushed me to go to the IWA and just gain exposure. So and the periods that we didn't have him, you can kind of see where we were surviving, but I feel like CJ really pushed me to my limits in a good way, in the best way possible.
Last year, and I think the pandemic had a lot to do with it. I think 2020 was the worst year in toxicity in Pro Wrestling. And I remember last year, in the RWI Discord, CJ would get into a lot of arguments with the roster members. And not even just that, there was a lot of toxicity in RWI, but not like major a lot. But and I'm not saying RWI is a toxic fed, but how do you deal with toxicity in Pro Wrestling?
Well, first off, I do not think 2020 was the most toxic year of pro wrestling. I think people are growing up to an age where they're realizing what is toxic and what isn't, whereas in the past, people were younger and didn't even know. But I do think that there was a lot of toxicity in RWI. But if CJ hadn't stepped up and actually said something, people will walk all over you, and that's the way that I look at it. The way I deal with toxicity is, personally, I don't have a community. People know me if you see me on Roblania, you'll know me as a very professional person, but I'm not always like that in my, like DMs and everything, because Pro Wrestling isn't really something that I'm gonna put in 100% into, because it's really just a side hobby. But for toxicity, the way that I look at it is, if you have toxic people in your Fed, you were the one that brought them there. You were the one that allowed them to do that. If you look at a Fed like AXW, and yeah, they are toxic in some ways, but generally the community that they have is really, really, really awesome. And I did that in RWI, where I made sure people knew that like you can't just be doing stuff. I'm talking about 2020, but like you just can't do stuff. You can't do stuff that's out of the line. You have to like be respectful. And if you look in like the RWI chats, I don't try to. I do try to talk to people in different ways, and it can be rude a lot, but most of the time it's always with the sole goal of helping people. I have bullied people in the past, but I mean, everyone's done that. if the way I deal with toxicity is if you build a solid foundation, like right now UWI we're just doing so good right now, I think, in terms of toxicity, because we don't have anyone, because I don't bring in anyone who's inherently toxic, and people are able to respect me as a Fed owner. And whereas if you look at a Fed like OPRW, not no knock on Alex, I love that guy, but nobody takes him seriously, and I think people they take me seriously because they respect me as a Fed owner and what I do for UWI and RWI respectively.
I can kind of agree to where you pointed out about 2020 not being the biggest year. As everybody knows, you make really great YouTube videos for Roblania's YouTube page, but you're also really good at developing. When did you first start to learn how to develop, and what motivates you to do it?
I think over time I just got tired of using free models. In 2017, I ended up making my first arena called the Manhattan Center in RWWW. It's a pretty solid arena now that I look at to this day, but I've always had this will where I wanted to learn more things. I would do things where whenever I go to a Fed and see an arena, I don't just sit there and say, wow, that's a really nice arena. I actually study it. You know, I look at the patterns that they've done. How did they make this wedge thing? How did they make this certain design? If you look at the UWI arena when it eventually opens and you guys can see it, you'll notice that the chair stand is actually inspired off a performance center that I saw, and I took notes on that. What I've always done in my career is took notes and always tried to be innovative. A lot of developers, they will do the same thing for years and years and years and will never improve. And I think that's me in GFX. I don't really improve a lot because I've just gotten to a point where I feel like I'm so comfortable and good at what I do. I don't need to, but I noticed that, like, hey, I'm actually adding more templates here. I'm doing new styles. I actually am learning. But the reason why I've always like developed is gotten better at developing and gotten so exceptional at it in terms of our wrestling is because I've always tried to be better and be innovative. I never conform to the same thing. But I started developing in 2017. I think in 2020 2018 I had some of the most creative designs, but it wasn't executed as good. And in 2020 I had the best execution but not the best creativity. And I think in 2021, I'm at a point where I'm just very consistent in what I do. And if you look at all my stuff, it's always consistent. In RWI, like, I don't have really good GFX, but bad arenas. I don't have bad arenas, but really good, but really bad. Sorry, I don't have. I'm gonna edit this out. Fuck. You know, I've gotten to a point where I feel like I'm very consistent, and whenever I make an arena, it's not. I balance it out, you know. I don't have good arenas, bad GFX. I don't have good GFX and bad arenas. It's always balanced, and that's what I've tried to do. And I think that's why people think that I'm really good at what I do, when in reality, I wouldn't consider myself as great. But when I compare myself to other developers, I don't think that they try enough. I don't think that they do enough, and I don't think that they're very innovative enough. And I think that's why I've gotten to the point where I am. And also, I do have a lot of time invested in developing, and it's helped me accumulate a lot of money in not just Roblox terms, but also IRL terms. So yeah.
Let's talk about what, in my opinion, I think everybody wants to talk about. Let's talk United Roblox Wrestling. Now, I don't think I really need to explain what UWI is, especially because all of the videos about it are on this channel. I know the co-owner approached you about it, but how and when did all of this start?
On February 21st this year, we had this conversation where a joke was made about RWI returning, and I said, I'll return it if you host it. And the co-owner said, I'll host it if you just do the developing and graphics. And I was like, that's perfect, because one of the things that I never liked doing was hosting specifically. I considered myself a good host, a lot better than a lot of the people I see now.
You're definitely a good host.
I just dreaded it towards the end of the part, so I don't like doing it anymore. But at some point, I felt like I was very, very good at it and better than a lot of people. But that's aside from the point. We had this conversation, and I was like, I would love that. And then we were like, okay, let's not return any Fed because they're basically dead, and we don't want to like force it on one community. We want to build our own. So it was a better marketing decision and business decision and like social decision to make a new Fed. And that's what we did. We made a new Fed called United Wrestling International, and it's only been 2 months and we've already gotten so much exposure, and it just kind of proves how you don't need years to get to a high point.
You know, I think it actually, I have to disagree with you there. I think it does take years of experience to learn something like this, because I think you and this co-owner are both obviously experienced in pro wrestling and federations.
No, we've gotten here only based on our trailers. That's literally the only thing we have promoted or revealed, and that's based on production. So if you are if you're a good producer and you can make what we make, and you'll get this much attention, guaranteed, because that's what we've gotten. And sure, you can say, like, it's because Ash Hayes is hosting the Fed, but the thing is, while I did at some point consider myself major, I don't think that necessarily built the entire community that I have. If you look at the real, like, top guys that we have signed, they approached me based on the videos and the stuff that people outside of RWI were saying. But I guess I do see your point. But the thing is, we haven't even gotten to the nit and grit of success in hosting yet. This is based on production alone.
All right, yeah, and
you don't need years to get good at production. If you're just a regular Roblox developer and you like WWE and you come into the community, you can do this.
You know, I'm starting to kind of understand that, but a little blank spots there. But anyways. Tell me how UWI will be different from RWI.
First off, I know a lot of people are thinking of it as an RWI return. Don't. It's going to be better than RWI, but it's not going to be RWI. RWI is a very special federation, and it's a very great federation, but it is not going to return. The host of it is not going to be me. I will not be hosting every single show. I will be hosting some parts, like the Elite Contender title. In terms of that, I will have great creative direction in it, and I probably will do it. And I'll be streaming the shows, I'll be making executive decisions, and some creative decisions, but I will not be hosting the show. The host is someone I consider better than me, more successful than me, and once he or she is revealed, you're going to understand why this is the total package. But RWI is going to be different in terms of just the co-owner, but the production is going to be a lot more consistent and a lot better because I don't have the burden of hosting anymore. I'm going to be doing stuff in my own comfort, and I'm going to be pushed to do more, and I'm going to be making different stuff like the videos that I've just made. That's just like the foundation of what we're going to be doing. Like, we have so much more to do. And now that people are finally noticing that, I think that it's going to be way different from RWI. Where RWI was a good fed with good production, with good hosting, but it never went to that next step where it could be number one. I am a firm believer that nobody in Pro Wrestling is working harder. Maybe SCW, probably SCW, but other than SCW, I'm a firm believer that nobody is working harder and better than us. And I think when we launch, we have the potential to be number one in terms of our production and hosting. Again, we have great production, but our hosting is going to be off the charts when he or she is revealed as the co-owner.
You know what I find funny? I find funny how everybody's going to believe everything we talk about is scripted in this interview because you own this channel and I'm on the Steiner section, but no, we just planned this out today.
Yeah, I'm just freestyling these questions, guys. Like, I know I own Roblania, but I don't really conduct these interviews unless I'm the one doing the interview.
Now, I'm looking back through my notes, and I have this question that I wanted to ask you earlier, but we got sidetracked about UWI and stuff. So, a few months back, I did an interview with Origin CA here on this channel, on the Steiner section, and I asked him this question during the interview, and I'm curious how you would respond. Do you think when you started RWI that you started to shift from an in-ring performer to a Fed owner?
No, if you followed my career, you would know that I was never a wrestler.
Yeah, that's about it for this episode of the Steiner section.
You can catch UWI premiere live Wednesday, 5:30 p.m., April 14th, and from there we'll be going every single Wednesday. It'll be live on the Roblania network if you're not going to be live in the arena, but there's no point. We have linked UWI in the description of this video, so go check it out.
We hope you like, comment, and subscribe to the Roblania network. We'll see you next week for the Steiner section. See you guys.